Hello, this is Jill from Paper Daisy Crafting. Thank you for joining me in my studio today. And today's project is this lovely little card here. This is a card I made for a very, very good friend of mine who's also into paper crafting, and so it's always a real challenge to come up with a card for her birthday, because I have to have something really special. And she'd seen a card with a very similar panel on Pinterest and had pointed it out to me, so I thought for her birthday I'd try and recreate it and make her a very similar card. The card that she saw had hearts on it, which I wasn't sure about sending her hearts, so I decided to put flowers, and I love this black silhouette outline of the flowers on there against the rainbow panel. Really pleasant. So I'm quickly going to show you how I made my card, and first of all I'm going to show you how we made the rainbow panel. Taken a piece of our watercolour paper. So it's very stiff. It's really hard actually, but it's got a nice surface for watercolouring, and it won't warp or go out of shape when you apply water to it. My panel measures, about 10.5 centimetres by about 7 centimetres, or 4.25 inches by 2 3/4 inches. Slightly bigger than the panel I'm going to need for the card, but that's okay because I can trim it down, and I'd rather that than have the edges all rough and ready. Okay, and as you can see, I've marked off 2 centimetre intervals along the top here, just to give me an idea of where the bands of colour need to come. I'm going to take one of our Aqua Painters. If you haven't seen these before, these are like paintbrushes but with a water reservoir, so you fill them up. Got a lovely, I think this must be silicone, this tip, but it's really lovely to use. It's really soft and really bendable, and you can get a very sharp point. Can you see if I put it on there? Bring it up a bit. It's got a very sharp point, so you can get very detailed, but you can also do washes for backgrounds as well. So I used our inks to do my background, starting with Melon Mambo, and what you can do is on the old style ink pads, which are now retired, but most of my ink pads are that design because I'd bought them all before they all retired, you need to press, and what will happen is you'll get some ink from the stamp pad in the lid. And that means that you can then come in with your Aqua Painter and just pick up some colour with your Aqua Painter. And if it's not enough, if you've not got enough water, you can give it a quick squeeze, which will just send a little bit more water down to the tip, and like so. Okay, and then I'm going to paint the first one of my panels in Melon Mambo. So just swoosh it all over. You can go back over with deeper colour if you want to. So can you see this is quite light, getting quite light, but I can just go in and pick up a bit more colour and go back in, and it spreads really nicely. And I want this mottled effect. I don't want it to be just a solid, so I want it to be lighter in some places and darker in others. Just a little bit more maybe. There we go. That's my Melon Mambo panel. And then I'm just going to come in with some old kitchen roll, and sorry, you can't see that, and you'll be amazed at how quickly the tip will clean. So I've managed to clean all the colour off my tip, ready to go on to the next colour. And I'm just going to dab in my stamp pad because there's quite a lot of water in there and I don't want it to leak into the stamp pad, so I'm just going to remove that before I close my stamp pad up. My next colour is Pimp Pumpkin Pie. Exactly the same strategy. A little bit of ink in the lid. Come in with your Aqua Painter. Bit of water, squeeze it a little gently to get enough water there, and then butt it right up against the Melon Mambo panel, like so. Pick up as much or as little colour as you want. You could do a very pale version if you wanted. I'm quite into bright colours at the minute, so mine's quite bright. There we go. So it doesn't matter if you go over the lines, but that was just a guide. There we go. And I want this to blend, so I'm just going to go over that a little bit more. There we go. Maybe just a little bit of darker colour here and there. A little bit there. There we go. And again, I'm going to clean my Aqua Painter on a piece of kitchen roll. Instantly clean, look, and just dab my kitchen roll. See, this is a bit of a messy technique. Just lift up the spare water because I don't want that to penetrate my pad. The next colour is Daffodil Yellow. Again, same routine. These are all old stamp pads, so you're able to do this. I'm going to use a new stamp pad in a minute, and I did something different with that because I couldn't get the ink to go on the top inside lid, so I'm going to do something different. But again, just keep picking up the colour with enough water. The Aqua Painters are lovely actually. They're very easy to control the water flow, so you can have as much or as little as you want. There we go. That's my yellow panel. Maybe a little bit more colour in there. There we go. Lovely. Just make sure that edge is nice and wet before I come back in. Yeah, let's just stamp that off. Now the next colour, on my original panel, I think I used Emerald Envy. Unfortunately, that's now retired. So I'm going to use Granny Apple Green, which is one of our new greens. But for as much as I pressed, I could only get a tiny amount of ink on the lid. So instead of doing that, I came in with a clear stamp block, pressed it gently into the ink, and that picked up enough ink on here for me to use for this purpose. So an alternative method, if you've got a new stamp pad and you can't get ink onto the top. Some people have managed it. However hard I pressed, I couldn't manage to get any ink onto the lid. So here we go. Press a little bit, get a little bit of water, and then you can just pick the colour up from the stamp block, and that will clean up perfectly afterwards. It's not a problem. So there we go. That's my Granny Apple Green, one of the new colours. That's a lovely green actually, isn't it? That's the first time I've used this green. Lovely, like that a lot. And then the last colour I'm coming in with is again a different colour, because on my original card I used Tempting Turquoise Sob. It's one of my favourite colours, but it's gone, so I've got to live with that. So I'm going to use Bermuda Bay, which is quite a good substitute. They were very similar colours, so I can see why we didn't have a need for both of them in the catalogue, but it was one of my favourites. There we go. And coming in with Bermuda Bay, and that's just about your panel finished. How simple was that? Really lovely effect, really easily. Don't need to buy any special inks or anything. Don't even need to buy the re-inkers, because you can just use your stamp pads and an aqua painter. You could use a paintbrush actually in a jar of water. You don't need an aqua painter. I find it really easy and convenient to use an aqua painter, and they're not that expensive, so why wouldn't I? Right, let's just dab the water from there and clean my aqua painter, and that's all our watercolouring done. So unfortunately this will take time to dry, but fortunately in good old Blue Peter style, I had one that I made earlier. So I'm quickly going to show you how I put the rest of the card together. Let me just wipe that block, because I'm bound to put something on it if I don't. So I think my kitchen roll can go in the bin now. Right, so I need a card blank. I haven't yet scored it. I'm going to bring my trimmer in and use that to score. Make sure I use the right blade. I'm going to score it. It's 21 centimetres, so I'm going to score at 10.5. If you want the imperial measurements, they'll be on my blog. So if you want to work in inches, the measurements will be on my blog. There we go. And I'm just going to bring my bone folder in. So that's my card blank. I'm then going to bring my trimmer back in to trim this panel down to the sizes I want. So I'm going to trim off where I marked the pencil lines, because I don't want those showing. So I need the right blade. So just trim off there. And then the panel, got the measurements here, the top panel needs to be 4.5 centimetres. There we go. So the top panel, I'm going to turn that round and do 4.5 centimetres. So that's there. And then the bottom panel needed to be about just over 1 centimetre. So that's about, it's quite tricky to cut little bits on this cutter. But no, that's not straight. Is that roughly straight? I hope so. There we go. There we go, that's fine. They're my two panels that I'm going to stick on my card. And to stick them on, I'm going to use some of our sticky strips. that are in the catalogue. These are really great for doing things like shaker cards, but they're also good for this because I don't want this to dip anywhere. If I just used normal dimensionals, there'd be gaps between them. So by using strips, I can make sure that this has a really solid background. So that if it goes through the post, it's not going to get squished and end up with a dip in the panel where it's been squashed through the postage rolling machines. So these strips are really brilliant to use for things like this. You don't want the panel to be squished. Oh dear, it's coming off. Don't want to come. There we go. So that's enough for that one. And then just a couple, background on the little thin panel. And then all we've got to do is take off the backing of this, which I say, but can take quite a while. I'm going to bring my tweezers in to do that. Let's bring my tweezers in. Just take off the backing here. 1, 2. I've just while I'm doing this, just to say, loads of you have been ordering from the new catalogue. I'm pleased to say there are some lovely products. This project today doesn't actually use any of the new products. These are all things that have returned, apart from the Granny Apple Green. But there are some lovely things in the catalogue. So if you haven't had a look, or you haven't even got a catalogue, please let me know. I'd be delighted to send you one. So I'm going to come in. Oh no, I don't want that stuck on there. And place this, I'm doing this by eye, so I'm going to place that about there. That's one panel, and then I'm going to take the other panel and just leave a tiny space, just to give it just a bit more of an interest, like so. There we go. And what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to change it up a bit. Now I have already stamped and cut out my 3 black daisies to use. If I bring my original card in, I don't know if you can see, but how shiny they are, because I actually clear emboss them. If you're quick with your memento pad, you can actually get these to emboss. It's not a pigment ink, so it wouldn't necessarily be advised for die cutting, for clear embossing, but you can actually manage to do it. Let me just show you how I did it very quickly. Take a strip of card, use your embossing buddy to make sure there's no sticky fingerprints it's going to stick to. Take your stamp. This is from the Beautiful Bouquet stamp set, which is there. It's this little flower here that I'm using, and it's got a little arrow at the top, so make sure that's pointed to the top so you know where you are when you come to die cut. So there we go. Make sure you've got lots of ink on there. I'm using a very thin little strip of card, and you'll see why. And then you need to come in relatively quickly. I've got a bit of paper here. Sorry for the crash. Relatively quickly, because otherwise the ink will dry and the powder won't stick to it in long enough to emboss. So there we go, and I can see that my powder has stuck. So you might need to do these all separately. I did manage to do 3 and then heat them, and so you'll be able to see. Let me put the memento ink away, otherwise that will end up getting something put on it. Bring in my heat gun, and you'll see that powder will start turning. My tip is to make sure you've got quite a big piece of card when you do this, because if you're trying to heat too close to your fingers will burn. So you need to have quite a long enough piece of card that you can hold it away from the gun. Enough. There we go. Is that turning yet? Oh, that's taking a long time. Oh, I don't think I had any powder left on it. That's what I said. That proved my point precisely. Let's try again. I'm just very aware that my video won't go any longer than 16 minutes, so I need to be very quick doing this because we're already on 14. Right, very quickly. And bringing the powder. Where's my powder? I've lost my powder. There it is. Let's see if I can get some on here this time. Right, I'm sure there is powder on there this time. Let's try. Actually proved my point, didn't it, about having to be very, very quick. Ah, this one is going. Can you see it changing colour? There we go. Right, so can you see how quick you need to be with the embossing powder to be able to do this with the black? It will work, but you do have to work very, very quickly. Right, so I've got my 3 daisies, which are going to be stuck onto here, like so, any arrangement that you want, and then just a very simple happy birthday, which I've used the happy birthday from the Happy Birthday Gorgeous stamp set, the little script one here, there, and I'm going to stamp it on the other side this time. So I'm going to put my daisies on this side and the Happy Birthday on the other side. So there we go, hoping that's straight. There we go, Happy Birthday, and then just very quickly come in with my Tombow. Forgot to get my Tombow out. Is that going to work? Oh, the pain of working live on camera. There we go. One thing I didn't say is because you've used your flowers, you've had your arrow pointing upwards. When you come in with the die to die cut them, then you know where the pointy bit of the die goes. Here's the die, just very quickly. So you know that you need to put